Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I know it's raining, but good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call our November the 18th Nash County Commissioner meeting to order at this time. It is customary for our board to start our meetings with a prayer by a
You
commissioner.
need to way back here.
And during that prayer, you're welcome to stand and join us in the prayer. You're welcome to use this time to have your own prayer, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, whichever you prefer. And after the prayer, we'll have a pledge of allegiance to the flag by Mr. Outlaw. And at this time, I'd like to call on Sue Leggett to lead us in the invocation. Commissioner Leggett.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we gather today with thankful hearts, thankful for all of the blessings that you provide. We pray today for your guidance, your wisdom, and your mercy. Please be with us today as we conduct the business of Nash County. Lord, please be with all those who are in need of your healing, your presence, and your guidance. All of these things we ask in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. At this time, we are now on item number 4, which is Nash Community College, one of our very important partners for our citizens in Nash County. And it is a joyous day today, I think, as all of you will agree. And at this time, I'd like to call on Paul Jaber, Chairman of the Board of Trustees for the Community College, to introduce our new president and anyone else he has with him today. I'll put him on the spot.
You're going to challenge me again with the people that are with us. Let me do that first before
Okay.
we introduce Dr. Honeycutt. Bill Marston, trustee, Wendy Marlowe, and the rest of them with the college, Adrian Covington, Tammy Clark, Jonathan Vester, and Mike Latham, all VPs with the college and so forth. And thank y'all for being, and Pam? She's hiding in the back. And Pam Blue hiding behind them. Didn't see you, Pam, sorry about that. All VPs with the college. So we're glad to have them here.
And 2 trustees up front.
And 2 trustees up front. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and county commissioners and the county attorney and the county manager for allowing us to come today and introduce to you our 5th college president, Dr. Lou Honeycutt. And I'm going to say a few things about him, then we'll turn him loose. Originally from Texas, Dr. Honeycutt graduated from Tarleton State University with a bachelor's degree in animal science and a master of science teaching degree in general agriculture. He holds a master's degree in animal science from New Mexico State University and a master's degree in reproductive biology and doctor of philosophy degree in animal science from the University of Wyoming. And I got an education today on lunch about the doctor of philosophy degree of animal science. Dr. Honeycutt began his professional career as an assistant professor at McNeese State University and later served in the same capacity at Southwest Texas State University. He was vice president for 12 years of extended services at Frank Phillips College, which is a community college in Texas, prior to joining the University of Georgia, where he most recently was assistant provost at the university's Griffin campus. Dr. Honeycutt moved here from Georgia a few weeks ago, and he's now a resident of Nash County and lives in Whitakers along with his 2 cattle dogs, Cooper and Sadie. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Honeycutt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jaber and Chairman Davis. Thank y'all for having me today. I have to tell y'all, you heard a bunch of degrees, right? So I have to tell you what my dad told me. He said, let me get this straight. You got a BS, right? I said, yes, sir. He said, you had that before you left home. You didn't need to go to get a degree. He said, you have a few MSs, right? I said, yes, sir. He said, now you got a PhD. Yes, sir. He said, do you ever think in the near future you might get a JOB? So with that, I'll say I'm so humbled and proud to be here in front of you all today. It has been an incredible ride to get to this point in time. It's been about a 10-week, very fast-paced move from Georgia to North Carolina. But I'm going to tell y'all the same thing I told the Board of Trustees when they interviewed me. I put it in my cover letter that getting this position would feel like coming home. And I've never said that before in any other place I've moved. And it has just been that way ever since. Nash County has opened its arms to me. And the best thing about this is that everywhere I go to, and I've spent a lot of time in Lowe's and places like that, Tractor Supply Company, but every time I say I'm the new president of Nash Community College, I don't get the bless your heart, which is a good thing, because I know y'all say that here too. I also don't get the, well, that's nice. I get the, oh my gosh, you're Nash Community College. Let me tell you, I have 14 family members and 16 cousins, and they've all went out there, and it's incredible. It is a 20-minute, it takes me 20 minutes longer to do anything in this area, but I love it. That tells me every day that what I chose, when I chose to accept this position, I chose the right one. Every day, and it's been very rare in my career that I can say this, and it's been a long career. Every day I wake up, and it's not that I say I can't wait to get to work, but it's that I say I get to go be the president of Nash Community College. With the help of this body, which, my gosh, I've never been in a state that had such county support for their community college system. So number one, thank you for that, and North Carolina for that. But just to be at a place where the feel of the county is to support the education that's going on here is incredible. And what I would tell you is to look out, because there are great things ahead. I am probably the luckiest man in this room. No, I'm going to say probably. I'm the luckiest man in this room. I get to slide in on the shoulders of greatness. 4 presidents before me have built, with Bill Carver being the one, right? He finished one day, I came in the next. It was a quick turnover. But he and the other 3 presidents have built a college that I know the county's proud of, and that I am already so passionate and proud of. And to be able to say that that's what I get to do every day, that now, are there going to be times when we'll all argue? Probably. But that's all right. We can get past that and go on. I will still be proud of where I am. So certainly with Wayne and Mary, I met them during my interview process and have seen them since. But everyone else that I've met, whether they be county employees or workers just in the county itself, have been incredible. So again, I would answer any questions that you might have, but just say, I get a little excited when I talk about Nash Community College, but that's a good thing. And I want to continue that excitement, so you're just going to have to get used to it. So what questions might I answer for y'all? If not, I could talk all day long, but I'll be quiet.
Any questions from board members at this time?
And by the way, Lou works really good with me. Dr. Honeycutt's great, but Lou works really well as well.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. It's a challenge, the way things are changing and the way the expense it is to go to a 4-year school, starting out as a freshman. And to me, it's a challenge for the community college to reach those who are not able to go to a 4-year school, and that ought to be one of your priorities.
And it is.
In the state as well as in the nation.
I agree with you 100%. One of the reasons I was at the University of Georgia, very prestigious R1 research university, and I loved every minute of it, but it got me away from mission. And the mission of my life has been to empower and change students' lives every time I can do that. And I think in order to do that, this is the level I need to be at, the community college level, where we can embrace those students and direct them towards pathways that they don't even know they're eligible for yet. And I agree with you, with the expense of higher ed, we can cut that cost, we can send them into a trade, we can send them into a skill, and we can produce the workforce for Nash County that doesn't graduate with a huge debt load that they may never pay back, and they're certainly going to be burdened with. We've got a lot of plans. We're going to start hitting the 4th graders in Nash County. And the reason we're going to do that is pretty selfish. If I can brand them to Nash Community College as 4th graders, but more importantly, convince their parents, specifically their mom, dads matter, but moms matter more in this. If I can convince their mom that being a welder is as important as being a lawyer, being a bricklayer, being an HVAC person, being whatever that student or that child needs to be, we're going to do that. We're going to start doing that at the 4th grade. And you're going to see great things.
Yeah, it's critical. I was shocked. I visited a university and they told me the tuition fee is $75,000 a year.
Whew.
Now, how many can go there without help?
I agree, and they do, but they end up graduating with huge debt loads that honestly is just unfair for everybody. So we're gonna keep that from happening as much as we can.
Okay.
Other comments from commissioners?
Well, could I just make one brief comment?
Absolutely, sir.
I was fortunate to be involved in the interview process once it got down to a short list. And I want you to know, and I say this publicly, that when you walked in the room, my gut told me you were the right one. Kind of like when we interviewed Mr. Lamb over there. And once we interviewed you, and I saw your qualifications, just like Mr. Lamb, I know you're the right one, and I know you're going to have a long, successful career here at Nash Community College. And I just hope I'm still around when you retire in about 15 or 20 years.
Wayne, I hope you are too.
It's a great honor to
That'll
have
be
you
great.
here in Nash County. You're going to do great things at Nash Community College.
Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
I would also like to add to Wayne's that we are very pleased to have you. I think what has really sold me on you is your enthusiasm. Your enthusiasm for our employees, which you know are the best in the world, but you already know that too. And that helps them do their job as you do your job, because you all are already a team. And I can already feel the teamwork, talking to the employees and talking to you, that you're all one accord, and you want what's best for Nash Community College, and thank you for that.
Thank you so much for that. And I agree with you. I've been made to feel so welcome, and we're not making big changes in year one. We're going to kind of get to know each other and figure things out, but I already feel that as well. So thank you so much.
All right, sir. If you would allow me to call you Dr. Honeycutt in this setting, I know you
Sure.
instructed me to call you Lou. I'm always very careful when I meet someone that has doctor in front of the name. Majority, I want you to utilize that, as I told you in a short meeting the other day.
Yes, sir.
But you actually did not, which was in itself impressive to me. But on behalf of the board, we welcome you to Nash County. We welcome you as a partner to the county. We will be one of your funding agencies,
Yes, sir.
and we will absolutely each year do the best we can for you. We have about 16 or 17, 18 more sitting behind you back there in one form or another that we also fund, but I assure you that we will work with you the best we can, and I know you already know you have a fantastic facility and campus out there, and we will continue to try to maintain the campus as you found it today, as well as try to add to it when funding allows. But I appreciate you being in Nash County.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it as well. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
As the board knows, each second meeting of the month, we generally will have a presentation by an outside presenter as well as an inside presenter. We utilize this time to have the outside presenter to introduce our new college president. Inside, we got really a couple of items. I'd like to ask permission to add an item 4A to the agenda, which would be a presentation by our EMS on a program that commissioners should have read about a little while back in the newspaper as it relates to a program with ER and helping the emergency room out at Nash General Hospital reduce wait times significantly. We all know that we were getting quite a bit of complaints about that a couple of years ago. It appears to be much, much better. In fact, numbers themselves show it's a lot better. So at this time, I'd like to call on Scott Strufy for this presentation if he's with us today. I hope he is. And anyone else you have with you, Scott?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if any members of the Nash Community College would need to leave, then I think we would understand that.
Sure. If you need to leave, you're welcome absolutely to stay with us. Wayne, I think you just ran them all out.
No, I don't.
But,
I know today's a busy day for them too.
we know you're busy. We'll pause just a moment and let you do that. I was trying to keep you here. Thank y'all. Scott, we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Mr. Chairman and Board, it's my pleasure to introduce Kim Langston. I don't know if you have the opportunity to meet her, but she is the director of the emergency room at Nash UNC Healthcare, and has been so now for
Almost 2 years.
2 years. And
That must have been when the improvement started, Ms. Langston.
Mr. Chairman, that is absolutely correct.
Great.
I could tell you after 22 years with Nash County, watching the ED at Nash, I can tell you she has come in and made positive changes for our community like no one I've ever seen in that ED. So the response to that, or one of the responses to that was, you saw the article in the Telegram, and Wednesday night, is that right? With WIG? Yes. Wednesday night, we'll be on WIG TV talking about something very similar to this. And just to let the community know about the improvements that are going on and the partnership that Nash UMS, the county, has with the hospital, with the ED in particular. One of the things I want to lead off with is talking about, really is an operational thing for me, but when the ambulances go to the ED, there is some process that has to happen. The patients have to be registered. There has to be room assignments and all kinds of different things that Kim has to worry about. And that takes time, and that has an ambulance crew with a patient in the ED going through that process. And when Kim arrived, the average time that was taking for our crew to offload a patient and get back in service was actually a little better than 30 minutes. And which actually it wasn't terrible, but our internal goal and what we had spent years at, it was at 20 minutes. So when you add 10 minutes of time times 12,000 patients transported to Nash ER over a year, that's months and months and months of time that basically an ambulance is out of service and is sitting at the emergency room and not out servicing the public. So I'll let Kim mention some of the things that she did, and we'll move forward from there.
It's nice to meet everyone.
Pleased to have you here, Kim.
Thank you, sir. In 2018, when I arrived in January, I started doing some studying of the turnover time for EMS in our communities. We serve 7 counties, which includes Wilson, Halifax, Vance, Warren, and Franklin, Nash. So it's a little over 15 minutes was our turnaround time. We developed a standard of work after looking at the data, and we were able to, what we do is we call it a bed ahead. So when EMS arrives, we go ahead and schedule that patient for a room, notify the nurse, give them the information. And so since then, our average, we closed of 2018, 2019, was 14.5. This year is even better. We're at 13 currently. We see about 1,350 EMS ambulances per month. So it's been really busy, and our goal was to get our partners back out into the community to serve the communities that they represent.
That translates, the savings that she created in the wait time translates to another 121 days a year there's an ambulance in service when you look at it by productivity time. So we're talking about minutes, but it's a huge impact on the county overall. Is there any questions about that in particular? We have a couple of other things we wanted to hit on, but we're going to go into patient care kind of stuff here and that was really.
Why don't you go ahead and we'll do the questions at the end, if that's okay with you?
Yes, sir, absolutely. So one of the things that we've been working on over the last several years also is improving our times to care for patients having heart attacks, okay? And the medical slang for that, we use the word STEMI, okay? And it's big, long, that's an acronym for a bunch of medical terms. But basically, that's kind of a sudden onset heart attack that typically can be pretty significant. And, from EMS perspective, we've been working on it for a number of years. And Nash UNC's done a great job with their heart center and bringing the backbone in to be able to kind of fix the problem with doing catheterizations. And then Kim came in and really just kind of ironed it all out. Took all the wrinkles out of the process in the ED, made sure the right people were sitting in the right seats, as we say, and has done tremendous work with that to expedite that whole process. And the results of that have been now that we reached, and we stood up here and told you about this, but we've reached what literally the gold standard for the American Heart Association for clinical care for heart attacks. And something we're really proud of, and Kim's people do a fantastic job in the ED. And, yeah, as we bring them in, so.
That gold standard is less than 60 minutes. So having come from Duke and Wake Emergency Department, I can share with you that that door to first medical contact to device is sometimes most of the time greater than 60 minutes, especially with all the things that I think our communities face in Eastern North Carolina. One, that's about education, about knowing when to call about a heart attack. I think our STEMI program, Tara Joyner, has done a marvelous job reaching out to our communities and explaining about that. We've done some education on WIG TV about heart attacks and when to call. I think we have a wonderful team. Our EMS partners go to the scene and are able to do an EKG. They transmit that EKG to the emergency department. If you are in our emergency department and walk in, our door to EKG time is less than 3 minutes, 94% of the time. So we're able to get that EKG done by paramedics. It's read by our physicians. We call then if it is a STEMI, which is a elevation in your ST wave, and we will call for that. The cath lab is notified overhead, and then we start that process. And so our current door to device time is 53 minutes was when I just looked at it for annualized. So excellent, and kudos to our team. They are always looking to improve that process. When EMS arrives, they calls us and lets us know that they have a STEMI en route. We go ahead and notify the CAF team. Our emergency department go ahead and puts everything together, whether it's an EKG or getting blood, and that person is sent straight up for a CAF. So we're beating some of our most fierce competitors surrounding us about our device time.
Great.
And similarly, we can say with processes in place for stroke, for acute onset of strokes, we're having great success with that as well. And now also with sepsis, which is kind of like large infection, you're having a body-wide reaction to an infection. And that actually carries a very high mortality rate, even though it may not look like a critically ill patient or something as dramatic as a heart attack. But we are doing something similar with early notification into the hospital. She has her team ready to go to receive the patient. We're already doing all the things that we can do in advance of arriving to ED, so all those things are in place. Starting IVs, we're doing monitor, measuring, drawing blood, whatever it is. If it's stroke, we already have blood drawn, ready to send to the lab when we come through the door. All the little parts and pieces we can do on the way to the hospital, we try to make sure we have that already done, because all of that saves time once they get through the door.
Very exciting.
Sounds like.
It may not sound like that to y'all, but it's very exciting for us.
Anything else, Scott? Are you ready for questions?
I could probably keep talking, but I think we're good. So.
Any questions or comments from commissioners at this time? Mr. Belfield?
The improvements that you have made, what percentage or any kind of information you have that in cause of the improvements, how many lives you've been able to save, especially heart attacks?
We don't measure the failures. We always measure the one that we got. So I can't reflect on the ones in the past, sir. I can only tell you since my arrival, working with EMS and our staff, is to that quick recognition of a heart attack. We put all of our staff, including our techs, through a class. We partnered with our cath lab to improve those response times, and some of our device times have been as low as 37 minutes. So from the time you hit our door to the time we get you into the cath room to device is 37 minutes. That's unheard of.
That absolutely saves a lot of lives, but it's hard to say which ones wouldn't have survived if we hadn't have done that, But as far as I'm concerned, it's world-class numbers. When you look at our community, our demographics, our geography, those types of things, it'd be hard for us to make any more dramatic improvements. There's always things we can continue to improve incrementally, but There's nothing else in the world that we know of that I think we can do that would have any dramatic improvement beyond what we're already doing now, so.
Yeah. Well, I thought about that question because I remember, I know it was over a decade ago, on 60 Minutes, they said if you're going to have the title of it, if you're going to have a heart attack, make sure you have it in Seattle. They were talking about
Yes.
the improvements
to
that they had made, and I don't know if some of y'all may have seen that. So that's, I was just wondering, and I do recall, I think they had a slight statistic from it, but it was coming basically from the doctors who
Mortality rate.
said if they hadn't done what they did before they got here to the hospital, this person would have been dead on arrival.
Yes, sir, that is true. And as Scott was talking, in eastern North Carolina, I'm not sure that you are aware, we have some of the highest incidents of heart disease in the United States, along with stroke. So we've been working very hard to improve our community's outcomes.
I'd just like to make a comment. I think it's really wonderful to see the partnership between Nash EMS and the ED at Nash. It's really, really good, and happy to have that.
Thank you, Ms. Leggett.
Just a quick question. Do you have many people that come in on their own, that is, they're not transported by EMS? And if so, what is your history with those people in terms of timing?
So are we talking specifically about stroke or
Stroke
chest
or
pain?
heart attack.
So we do have a few, I have to say, our care coordinators, which is Tara Joyner and Meredith Hayes for our STEMI process, and then Mary Kay Baker for our stroke process, have been out into the communities at various league and faith events to discuss healthcare. Whether you come through the front door or whether you come in by EMS, our times look on our mirror. And what we did upon my arrival, we use a standard of work. So that standard of work does not deviate based on what door you come through. So the same process, whether you come through the back or the front, is what we do.
It would
That-
seem if they walk in the door versus being transported in, you've got certainly much more information if they're transported in. So I walk in the door, and I think I've had a heart attack or a stroke. I assume you get on that pretty quick.
Yes, sir.
Because it's pretty critical, those first,
Minutes.
yeah.
Yes, sir. So we added a nurse out into our waiting room. She's called a pivot nurse. We also have a paramedic out in our waiting room. And so when someone arrives complaining of chest pain or stroke, they go straight to the nurse. The nurse either activates a stroke or STEMI process. We get an EKG, and like I was saying, in less than 3 minutes. If it is a stroke, it goes straight to the CT scanner so that we can go ahead and scan their brain.
Great. Good. Thank you.
I'd like, excuse me, make a comment, because my husband's been there twice. I mean, he's had open heart surgery, but we cared, and I can tell you, when he walked through that door, a heart attack, or they think he's having heart problems, is taken care of right that minute. I mean, right that minute, they take you back.
Yes,
And you
ma'am.
may stay back there a while, but they think, 3 years ago, it was kind of long. He went like 6, 8 weeks ago. I mean, like, you couldn't tell the big difference. All right, not that he wasn't tended to the first time, but the second time, it was like, this is very important. Let's get it and make sure there's nothing wrong. And I want to commend you on the improvements in that department.
We appreciate that, Ms. Wells. And I will share with you, one of the things that Scott and I have been working on, not only with our own staff, is getting out to our community that you are an extension of our family. So therefore, we would only want to treat our family the same way, right? Get everybody back. And I think that sense of urgency is there, along with the standard of work. I think you have to eliminate barriers for staff so that they can overcome some of those things. Everyone wants to give the best care that they can, and our job as leaders is to remove those barriers, and that's what we've been working on for the last 2 years.
Any other questions from commissioners? Comments? Scott, the only one, I think I know the answer to this question, but it's something that bothered me a lot those 3 years ago times. But you used to hear in the community quite a bit, which really bothered me, and I think you and I have talked about it, that a lot of our citizens had learned that if they had what they thought was an emergency, they would automatically call EMS just because they felt like they got treated quicker if they went in on the ambulance. And that rumor was in our community. With you reducing these wait times so much, or turning the ambulances around, is that still an overriding issue? Or my thought is that our wait time period has improved so much. I hope that part's improved as well.
I would say that there's still some behavior out there that, that they operate that way. But I'd say the consistency of the process that Kim has put in place and the
Right.
communication that we have doesn't automatically mean they're going to get a bed out of somebody in front of somebody who needs the bed worse. We take, most of those people are going to go straight out to the pivot nurse, into triage, into the waiting room, and be put into the process the same as everybody else. And they may still get seen very quickly, or they might have to wait for the 2 or 3 cases that are definitely life-threatening that's in front of them. But no, I would say that once they get into the process, maybe they're using an ambulance, to get to the hospital. Because we don't say no,
I understand.
And, but other than that, I think Kim has got a good handle on how it's processed in the ED now, where it's not creating as much problem for those, but you probably speak to that particular part better than me.
And actually, mine went in on a car, so it was not on an ambulance, and they did see him fast.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Mr. Davis, one of the things I think EMS has always faced, because I've also been a paramedic nurse for most of my life. My husband is also one of the assistant chiefs of EMS in surrounding counties. So EMS is utilized by some of our citizens because there's no other way for them to get here to the hospital. And unfortunately, that may just mean that they have a cold or stubbed toe, which might be an emergency in their eyes. However, we do tend to take that seriously because it is an emergency to them, and their family members are just as concerned. I think Scott's team has done a great job educating our community as well as some others about when to call for an emergency. However, we still tend to treat those patients. We have an area called Super Track that can see patients very quickly, and we also discharge from the waiting room. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that new process that we've implemented.
Cool. I think just continue educating our citizens as to what has changed out there. Hopefully we'll drop that number down. I certainly realize that that's an expensive ride.
Yes, sir.
When you get on that ambulance, and somebody's got to pay that bill. So we're all concerned about healthcare costs. So we really got to work together to bring that down. And that's certainly one way I see, if we could train our citizens to understand that it would certainly help.
One of the things in particular that I think we've had good success with is with our community paramedic program.
Absolutely. Yes,
If
sir.
we have a particular patient that is showing that behavior repeatedly, then we can schedule a visit with the community paramedic. And I would say 90% of the time in those circumstances, they're able to break down whatever their barrier really is.
Sure.
And help address that problem. So.
Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I want to say a couple things about our county EMS. We've got a great hospital, great affiliation with UNC, but I've been in some other counties before, and we, as a county, thanks to the commissioners, have one of the most comprehensive EMS systems that I've ever been associated with. We have 10 EMS stations, which I've been in counties that were much larger and had half that many or less than half that many. And just a year ago, 2 years ago, the commissioners saw a gap in the Middlesex area, and our response times were down less than what they were in the rest of the county, and the commissioners, at the urging of Mr. Cohn, who represents that area, decided they needed that 10th station. So it's so good to have an EMS department stations that are so active and ready to respond to the public when they need an ambulance. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd actually call that action by Mr. Combs a little bit more severe than urging, if I remember correctly. We thank y'all for being here very much. Great presentation, and on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, we greatly appreciate the number of calls that we get about our hospital and what's going on out there. It's just refreshing now to, as I've told a couple of you people, to go to church on Sunday morning and get comments and supporting the hospital very favorably, or in the country store. There was a period of time there where I kind of stayed in my truck as much as I could, quite frankly. But it is greatly approved. I know it's been a team effort, but we certainly, as our board, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think a round of applause by the board would be great. The second part of our Inside program this month is something that I always look forward to. Being a county employee, I think, is not a privilege, but certainly we're all blessed to be employed by a county and have a permanent job, permanent income, knowing where your paycheck's coming from each month, and having great benefits. And the United Way is one way that our county tries to also help those that are in a lot greater needs than what some of us may be. And our effort has shown improvement each year for quite a number of years, and I know that's based on a lot of work by staff members. But at this time, I'd like to call on Anson Kirtland to make presentations about the Nash County United Way campaign this year and the employees that certainly have helped. And Stacy, if you have something to add.
I just apologize. Jonathan Boone is going to step in for Mr. Kirkland's work this afternoon.
Okay, great.
Sorry to disappoint you. I really wish Aniston could have been here today.
Well, I only go by the notes given, sir. No disappointment whatsoever, and I think we have our United Way leader with us today, and Mr. Boone, I'd like to ask you to introduce her if you would.
All right, yeah,
And
please.
anything else you have on your program, sir.
All right, well, we'll start off, I'd like to recognize Ms. Jenny Woolbutter. She's Executive Director for our United Way Tar River Region. She's joining us today as we celebrate our 2019 United Way campaign. So,
Jenny, please stand
so
up
everyone can
just a
see you.
moment.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis and rest of the commissioners. Glad to be here today. As Commissioner Davis indicated, we had a successful campaign this year. Really pleased to be able to announce that we saw an increase of roughly 54% from 2018 to 2019. And I know there's some commissioners that really like numbers like I do, so I will share those with you quickly. For our 2019 campaign, Nash County employees pledged a total of $33,632.12. And again, that's an increase of roughly 54.1%, or $11,802.64 over 2018. There's basically three levels of recognition. Well, for this year's campaign, we had three levels of recognition. We had a starter care share level, so that would be an employee that pledged at least 6 hours of pay over a calendar year. Care share level, which was 12 hours of pay, a minimum of 12 hours of pay or more. And then the leadership level, which is a level actually created by, recognized by United Way Tar River Region, and that's any employee that pledges $500 or more over a 12-month period. And again, I'm happy to report our numbers went up in all areas, although this year was the first year for our starter care share level. We had 50 employees that elected to donate at that level. We had 44 employees that participated at the care share level, and then 13 of those 94 employees will be recognized as the leadership donors. So again, went up in all areas, and I attribute that to the hard work of the committee. And we mentioned earlier, I talked about family and the importance of family. Feel like that our county employees are family, and we value, as I know the commissioners do and our manager does, value community. We see this as one way that we can reinvest in our community and help those that need help, need a helping hand, a hand up, to maybe address a pressing need in their family, their situation. and we're just glad to be there to help. So with that said, I'll ask if there's any questions, and then we want to recognize those employees this year. We have a number here. Looks like a small percentage. I guess some are still at their workstations or either not working today. But we do want to recognize them for a successful 2019 campaign.
Any comments or questions from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Boone.
All right, and I guess one more thing I do want to mention, you're probably aware, the county manager, as part of our campaign this year, did issue a challenge to our county employees. We set a threshold of 35% participation across the organization. And the carrot for our campaign this year is the manager agreed that if we met that threshold, that we would be able to take an untold number of rolls of duct tape and tape him to a wall. So if you do not have any obligations this coming Friday, and I'm not sure if we set the time yet, but we'll get that information to you. But we're gonna see how many, it's like the owl and the Tootsie Roll. You know, how many bites does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll pop? We're gonna see how many rolls of duct tape it will take to hold the manager up on a wall that we're gonna fabricate and bring here to the administration building. So I know a number of commissioners were involved in the campaign, so we'd like you to participate in that if you could.
Sound like fun to me.
It should be an interesting experiment. So with that, if Commissioner Davis and Mr. Lamb, if you'll join me up front, we'll recognize our county employees. Yes, should be. All right, so I've got a list of names I'd like to go through of county employees that, again, participated in the campaign this year. And if you would come up front, we've got a certificate to recognize you, and then we've also got a mug with the Nash County logo on it. And I practiced a few of these names, but if I don't get your name exactly right, please don't hold it against me. This first one's easy, though. I got this one. Mr. Brian Brantley. He's a starter care share donor. He is also one of our 13 landmark leadership donors. Thank you, Brian.
We got to turn around.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, Brian. Next employee we have is Geoffrey Baum, and I know Geoffrey had to leave. We had an appointment over at the jail, so, but he was also a starter care share donor. Bruce Joyner. All right, Bruce cannot join us. Ms. Susan Phelps. All right, Ms. Pamela Brooks. Mr. Bryant Fisher. All right, Ms. Nichelle Burt. All right, here's my first test. Ms. Kayla Calamaco. Does anybody work with Kayla? How'd I do? Okay, thank you, appreciate that. All right, Ms. Clarice Edmond. All right, Ms. Latanya Evans. Ms. Nicole Glover. Ms. Millicent Graves. Got one. All right, Ms. Dina Hart Garner. How'd I do, Dina? All right. Ms. Frida Joyner. Ms. Angela Mangum. All right, I hope Ms. Salazar is here. Ms. Pavelissa Salazar. How'd I do, Amy? All right, great. Ms. Angel Tisdale.
I'm working on getting everything changed. I'm working on that.
All right, Ms. Letitia Turner. Ms. Sharon Williams. Ms. Tara Williams. Mr. Joseph Bradshaw. Mr. Brent Fisher. Mr. Devin McCroskey. All right, Ms. Amber Pasecki. Nailed it.
Pretty good. Look better.
Ms. Karen Smith. Thank you, Karen, for giving me an easy one. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Scott Stroof. Is it Scott? Did I mess up the Scott?
It was just on the second tee, right?
Well, he's come a long way. I said, he's come a long way, because his mother worked with me, and she had
Ms. Beverly Cooper.
his parents put him in private school, because he was slower, but he came out.
Yeah, he's a good man.
Yeah.
Y'all bear with me on this one. Ms. Donna, if it would. Ms. Kimberly Barnes. Ms. Joanne Basinger. Ms. Jamie Bragg. Ms. Tia Fula. Ms. Libby Nixon. Ms. Kanetta Rogers. Ms. Janelle Stevenson. Mr. Trey Wright.
Problem here, Trey. Sir.
Mr. Kirkland cannot be with us. Ms. Pamela Williams. She's holding down the office. Ms. Sandy Dick. Mr. Thomas Gillespie. Mr. Alan Richardson. Mr. Travis Thompson. Mr. Samuel Holmes. Ms. Tiffany Jones. Mr. Joseph, most of them know him as Joe Young. Ms. Valerie Harris. Ms. Fran Carden. Ms. Mary Clinton. Oh, didn't see you getting up there. Quick on the trigger. All right, sorry, Ms. Mary Clinton. Now, I have to say, she is one of my favorites. She makes the coffee every morning. Ms. Beth Massengale. Beth is also one of my favorites. She helps keep me straight. Mr. Ricky Evans and Mr. Samuel Pridgeon. Let me call back, let's see. See, we had a late arrival. Mr. Bruce Joyner. Bruce is modeling one of our new uniforms. You're modeling one of our new uniforms. All right, a round of applause for our starter care share donors. All right, now for our care share donors. First, we have Mr. Z. Lamb. Present yourself with a mug. And he is also one of our landmark donors. All right, Ms. Stacy Schatzer. Mr. Christopher Manning. I'm sorry, and Stacy was also a landmark donor. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Christopher Manning was also a landmark leadership donor. Ms. Amy Pridgeon Hamlet. Also a landmark leadership donor. I'll get it right next time.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Shay Neal. Also a landmark leadership donor. All right, Ms. Kimberly Nicholson. Also a landmark leadership donor. Mr. Scott Rogers. Also a landmark leadership donor. Ms. Tammy Jones. Also a landmark leadership donor. Mr. Brandon Medina. I get pronunciation right. Also a landmark leadership donor, Mr. Jonathan Boone. Thank you, sir. I nailed that pronunciation.
Good boy.
Also a landmark leadership donor, Mr. Scott Farmer. Is that working on the water system today? A landmark leadership donor. Ms. Christy Collier. Also modeling one of our new uniforms.
All right.
More than we bargained for in that one.
Should have waited till you got up here to do that.
All right, Ms. Janice Evans. All right, Ms. Megan Bandy. Mr. Jonathan Batchelor. Mr. Michael Vance. Mr. Keith Wood. Ms. Linda Antoinez. Yes. Come on, cut me a little slack. Ms. Tony Denson. All right. Ms. Euridia Gutierrez. All right. Ms. Mario McIntyre. Shannon Phillips. Ms. Sherry Pullen. Ms. Erica Stillman. Mr. Michael Baker. Ms. Ann Brantley. Ms. Andrea Giddens. I know I got that one right. I checked on that one. Ms. Brenda Goodwin. Or is it Godwin? I'm sorry. Ms. Heather Bone. Ms. Ms. Amy Pittman. Ms. Kimberly Shields. Got to take care of those folks in HR. All right, Mr. Don Ulrich. Ms. Morgan Dowdy. All right, Ms. Michelle McKnight. Ms. Ann Melvin. Mr. Bryson Revis, or Revis? I think it's Revis. All right. Ms. Jackie Chartier. 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 Only took me 3 times. Ms. Lynette Cooper. Ms. Natalie King. Ms. Kathy Ordess. Ms. Doris Sumner. Ms. Donna Tinsley. Ms. Barbara Green. Mr. Michael Phillips. Ms. Kimberly Nicholson. It's like 20, it should be 20 or so down. Once we start a care share.
Put it together.
It's right there. And last but not least, Mr. Robbie Davis, also a landmark leadership donor. Thanks, sir. All right, and we've got a few awards we want to give out in conjunction with the 2019 campaign. And these are departmental awards. So if hopefully there's a representative from each department here, and certainly any employees in that department can come up and be recognized. If you wouldn't mind, you can present. That'd be right. All right, and the first award we have is our Extra Effort Award. Not to be confused with the WRAO Extra Effort Award, but very close. This year, we'd like to recognize the Department of Social Services. They hosted an employee cookout to raise additional funds for the United Way campaign and raise awareness of the United Way campaign. So any representatives from DSS, please come up. Send you up here by yourself? Yeah. Wow.
Thank you.
Big baby.
Thank you. Oh, well, with the ring.
Never like to have her picture back here.
You remember that?
I do recall that, yes.
You make sure they mention that in your annual evaluation. You came up here to get that award. All right, our second award, we want to recognize the department had the largest increase in giving year over year, and that would be to the Human Resources Department from 2018 to 2019. Their total increased 244%. All right, and we would also like to recognize the runner-up, and I had nothing to do with it. I had no say in the second runner-up award. The Public Utilities and Facilities Department and Maintenance Department had an increase of 219%, 2018 over 2019, 219%. Come on, Christie, come on, Bruce. Come on, Beth. Yeah, Beth doesn't like to have her picture taken either.
Who's gonna take this? It's gonna up, Mike.
You hear everybody in there, John?
There you go. Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And then again, the last award we have is the plaque. We want to recognize all the departments that exceeded our 2019 goal of 35%. There were 12 departments. So we'll take this plaque and we'll display it in the building for each of the departments. But we also have a certificate here. So I guess if you can, we can multitask here. You can hold the plaque, which we'll get here in the building, and Mr. Lamb, if you'll hand out certificates. First department is kind of a conglomeration, administration. All right, and then we had our Board of Commissioners.
Good.
It'll be like DSS, they'll send one representative. All right, Department of Social Services.
All right.
There's only a few more.
Get back there where you can't be seen now.
We have our Finance Department. Our Human Resources Department. You're busy today.
All good.
Information Technology. We'll put Felicia to work.
Keep it right.
Recreation and Senior Services. You take a better picture, Tom. Let's see, Retro Deeds. All right, Soil and Water, Department of Soil and Water. Public Utilities and Facilities. We'll give you all a break on this one. See, that's how good I am. Travel and Tourism. And last but not least, Veteran Services. All right, and that concludes all of our awards. But again, thank you again, all the employees. Again, we had a lot of employees this year, 94 employees, over 200 employees participated in the campaign this year. So thank you very much. We're looking to build on that next year and even have more awards to present. So thank you for bearing with us.
I'm gonna call for a 5-minute recess. I'll reconvene the meeting this time, and we're now on item number 6, which is a public hearing for the expenditure of economic development funds. I'd like to call on Susan Phelps at this time to make this request.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
For our actions today, we do intend on holding a public hearing for the consideration of the recommendation of using economic development funds for Ripe Revival through the Retail and Small Business Incentive Grant. Pursuant to NC General Statute 158-7.1, a public hearing to consider the use of Nash County Economic Development Small Business Funds for the proposed allocation of $17,000 to Ripe Revival to support the capital improvements for the purposes of job creation, sales tax collection, and economic development investment in Nash County. Ripe Revival's innovative business plan meets the criteria listed in the Retail and Small Business Incentive Program application, which you all have a copy of. The county's support in the project will provide local jobs, investment, and increased sales tax. Ripe Revival's mission is to reduce farm waste excess while creating clean and healthy consumer products, all while donating back to the community in need. Their current product line utilizes patented technology developed in partnership with NC State University and another third party to have exclusive rights on multiple patents that allow for the creation of the first and only protein gummy made from real fruits and vegetables. These fruits and vegetables are already started to begin sourced locally by local farmers. Ripe Revival is also in the research and development phase of additional product lines like protein smoothies and bars. As recipient of the Kroger Zero Hunger, Zero Waste Foundation to assist with their production line, Ripe Revival will be locating their production and distribution facility in Nash County, where both owners were born and raised. These products are currently distributed nationally and internationally, and they intend to hire 25 to 30 full-time positions within the first 12 months of their new facility operations. We ask that you consider approval of the recommended use of economic development funds after a public hearing.
Any questions, Ms. Phelps, at this time by board members? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this item.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner
Second.
Combs, second by Commissioner Belfield. Looking right at you, Mr. Belfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we are in a public hearing on the matter of expenditure for economic development funds, and if there's anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the county expending these funds or against it, we'd certainly like for you to come up at this time, give us your name and your address, and we would be pleased to hear from you. Anyone wish to speak for or against this item? This is a public hearing required by statute that we're conducting today. Susan, I would like the applicant, if you would, to have the applicants come up and at least have you introduce them so the commissioners will know who they are. Not necessarily to say anything, but be glad to hear from them.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Will Cornigi, and this is Laura Hearn, my sister and business partner. And we are beyond grateful to be here today, and thank you for the support and consideration that we have already received thus far, just throughout the interactions we've had in our desire and the journey to come back to our hometown of our home county of Nash County to begin to grow our business. And so thank you all for that.
Yes, I'd like to echo that. We're very excited to, to have the opportunity to be standing here to talk about this project. And having been born at Nash General, Will was a little more high maintenance as a twin that was premature and had to be born in Pitt County, but he has been fighting his way to get back to Nash County for a long time. And so we're very excited to have the opportunity to put in a production facility. And, we were looking all around, but Nash County was always the desire.
We're certainly glad to have you here, Lauren. I must have a question about your statement. I heard you say he was a twin, but he's not your twin.
He is not my twin.
I was wondering how.
I know I look younger, but I'm older and more wise than him. Which is why he chose to loop me into this project, but he does have a twin.
I was actually wondering how quick the ride was that your mother had that night to have you in one place and him in another. That year, it was another, and I actually knew that because I remember both of us going to school with my daughter. Any questions of this couple here today? It is great to have a
Young couple.
couple in y'all's age group to come back to Nash County and look at opening business, and it tickles me to death as well as I know it does the rest of the board. But any other questions? I know a little bit about this particular process that they're doing, and it's actually an extension of the ag industries that we have here in Nash County, as well as the food processing industries that we have in Nash County. So we're very pleased to help you, the partner we are helping you, and thank you for working with Nash County and finding the location that suits you best. Other questions or comments?
Where will this be located?
It is located on, right off of Hunter Hill Road. What's the name of the street?
Yeah, English Road. right,
English Road. It wouldn't
behind the
quite come up.
dealerships.
Yeah, it's right behind Texify, to give you a little idea of where it's
Right on
at.
that corner of that street where you turn.
That's right.
Good.
Well,
Ms. Belfield?
just glad to see that we have young people that are interested in a grant from Nash County and small business too. That's what we created it for, and we're glad to know now we're beginning to get some applicants.
Can't speak highly enough for everyone that's been involved, especially Susan has been great in helping us facilitate the means to not only be here, but to really navigate what that looks like and how to apply and how to handle conversations. This is a first-time venture for us, and so we're extremely grateful for that. And, you know, that's something that really touches us, is the impact that it has on us as business owners to be able to come back to our community, because we want to make such an impact for the community. And I think it's important for us to talk about, not only are we utilizing local farmers' crops, friends, strangers in our products, but we also have a commitment to give back to the community. And that's a big part of what we want to do as well as our business grows, is for every pound we sell, we donate a pound to fight hunger. And so part of our ambition is to distribute food throughout the Nash and Edgecombe County confines and really help feed people, so.
Thank you, Will. Does the smarter of the two have any other comment?
I learned that the smarter usually doesn't talk as much, but.
You are indeed very wise.
No, we really just are so excited. We brought some product if you guys want to try it and be some of the first to try before we launch into full-scale production.
Great.
But yeah, we're through the Kroger initiative that we received. We were one of 7 innovators in the country to receive funding through Kroger, which is allowing us this opportunity. And so we're hoping that through the next year, we're really going to, be able to do a lot with that, and that you guys will be proud to have brought us back to Nash County.
Great. I'm sure we will be. Thank you all a lot.
Thank
y'all.
you.
Was there anyone else that wishes to speak for or against this item on our agenda? Seeing no one move, I'll call for a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Okay. Have a motion by Mr. Richardson, I think, second by Mr. Belfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now declared closed, and any more discussion from the board at this time about this item? It's not pleasure of the board.
I move that we approve the grant application of $17,000.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Belfield to approve the grant as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries unanimously, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for all your hard work on this, and thank you again, Will and Lauren, for being here today. Look forward to working with you. We'll now move to item number 7, which is a proposed animal control ordinance revision. And I'll call on Bill Hill and Trey Wright to make this presentation at this time.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to maybe formally introduce, I think most of you met Trey Wright, our Deputy Director. He's been with me since July 1, and glad to have him. He's already done a lot of good work. I'd also like to pass out, I think there are 10 there that are handouts we can look at as we go along. This is meant to be just a discussion about some proposed changes in the animal control ordinance. They're not asking for any approval or adoption today, of course. I would say that I have talked with our county attorney on many occasions, several serious meetings about looking at different county ordinances, and he's done a very thorough job at looking around and also revising what we think would be good for Nash County. Also, I have gone before our Human Services Board on several occasions, back as early as in 2017 with the new state general statute amendment that has to do with post-rabies exposure with other animals. But then more recently in February and in April of 2019 about the tethering section. And if you look at this 3-page handout, this is really to take with you, but you can follow along. The two basic proposed changes have to do with a general statute change, and it's a good change. This really is a good one with General Statute 138-197. Where heretofore, when an animal, cat or dog, was exposed or reasonably suspected of being exposed to a rabid animal, if it was currently vaccinated, everything was fine and good. As long as it got its booster shot in 5 days, we were all good and fine. And then if it's unvaccinated, not much has changed there. It was an unfortunate situation. The pet owner would face euthanasia with the animal or 6 months of quarantine, which was very expensive. That wasn't home quarantine. It wasn't animal shelter quarantine. It was an approved facility such as a veterinarian's office. 6 months would be a long time at a daily rate. And I know we've had different ones to come before us in times past that we had to force the 6 months on them, and it was really difficult. This next one, though, the third category of exposure, is an overdue one that's late. And this is one that comes to us quite often. The cat or dog's been vaccinated rabies, but it's just a month late in that first year or that 3-year shot, that subsequent shot. And this really does improve that situation with the latest research done. Instead of faced with the euthanasia option or 6 months of quarantine, here it's a much better deal when you get the booster shot in 5 days. Research has shown that that animal's antibody titer really does become robust. It really does booster the animal, and it's fully protected enough that if you get that, even if the animal's late for a shot, you can still, if you get the booster shot, take the animal home under observation. Big difference than quarantine for 6 months and observation for 45 days. And with the undocumented, okay, I had my cat or dog vaccinated, but I can't find the tags, and the veterinarian can't find it. It was done in a public clinic. You've got a difficult situation there. You've got either not the euthanasia of 6 months, you've got euthanasia of 4 months. But this time allows for serologic testing. You can actually take the cat or dog into the veterinarian's office and see if it's developed an antibody increase that shows that it really did have a vaccination sometime in the past, even though you can't produce the documentation for it. And that will suffice the needs to go with that. In essence, this is really just in this ordinance, and again, not asking for the adoption or approval today, but to go to approve what's already been passed as state law, and as a National Association of State Public Health Veterinarians have recommended as national guidelines, it's already been amended into the state statute in General Statute 138-197. So this is something we would like to include in the ordinance when we have it hopefully revised. The next big section that we really are looking at is with tethering of dogs or dogs primarily. It involves, this is a new section. We've had some complaints, we've had some concerns with large number of dogs, especially on vacant, unoccupied dwelling or properties that would be tethered or chained in many cases, heavy chains often, and our current ordinance has no real regulation for tethering. If it has an adequate shelter and it's been fed with food and water, it's primarily a satisfactory condition. The reasons we really think that we should add a tethering, not only because of the complaints, and quite frankly, it's hard for me to understand why anyone would want to have 16 dogs tethered on a vacant piece of property. It does bring up concerns for the motivation behind wanting to tether 16 dogs, especially if they're pit bull dogs in this situation, or in other situations where you have other dogs tethered. So it really does bring a question of motivation and what's behind the reasoning for this. We think some regulation with tethering would improve the existing ordinance by raising the standards for responsible tethering. We think to establish some consequences for negligent tethering and detrimental practices would be in order. I also think this would reduce aggressive behavior and dog bites. And simply said, I think it would reduce cruelty and neglected behavior from the owner. We don't have this a whole lot to occur, but when it does occur, we feel like we need some regulations behind it. Under this section, we're proposing that no more than 5 dogs. When I took this before the Human Services Board, County Attorney, Mr. Durham, and I'm not sure you were with us at the time, but I think we talked about 3 dogs. There are some ordinances, quite frankly, go with no dogs. And there's some that talk about only 3 hours in a 24 period of time. We've talked about not so severe. We want to have some regulation with restraints in regards to this, but not to the 0 tolerance, but at least our proposal was 3, and after a couple of discussions in February and again in April, our Human Services Board recommended 5. I think that's fine. It's not 16, it's not 12, it's saying no more than 5 dogs simultaneously on the same property can be tethered. And then it talks about no dogs on a vacant piece of property or an unoccupied property, meaning that you just can't tether 1 or 2 dogs even on that vacant piece of property where you don't reside, there are no structures, or if there is a structure, that if no one lives in it, unless there's someone present at the time. In other words, you take your dogs out and want to walk them, or you want to keep them down, and you're there at all times, fine, but not just to put them on vacant property. There's some other language issues here that our county attorney picked up on where it said Board of Health. We've referred to Human Services Board instead of Board of Health, and taken out animal agriculture and put in, left just livestock for just the sake of legal interpretation in the event you go to court, that we don't restrict livestock, and it's not as broad as animal agriculture. But that's the discussion we wanted to have today, and I'll see if Trey, if you have anything to add or questions you'd want for us to respond to. I believe we might even have someone, a couple of people in the audience that have been concerned about this very issue and have voiced it to me on occasion, but it's a concern we've looked at for quite a while.
Bill, when it comes back to us asking for adoption, will it be a public hearing involved at that time?
I think that's something the county attorney might want to speak to.
It doesn't have to be, but I advised him that I thought the commissioners would like to have a public hearing.
I agree. Would indeed, but that would be the time to do it?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was trying to get to, Mr. Hill, just to see if I wanted to open it up today or if there would be a public hearing at a later time.
Yes, sir.
And probably would need to get it to the form in which it would be an ordinance presented to the board, and we would conduct a public hearing then. The couple you spoke to, I would like to have you introduce them, because I think we have received possibly, I haven't met them, but a lot of emails from them, and I wanted to thank them
Okay.
for that, to keep us informed at least anyway.
Mr. and Ms. Culpepper, I believe are the only ones here from the public right and
Okay.
back here. He's been very patient and they're very, very insightful and provided some good input to me. As a matter
Sure.
of fact, I copied your objectives, why we needed to do
Yeah.
that.
Mr. Culpepper, I really just wanted to make sure that was you and your wife, just to know who I had been hearing from so long. And I hope you understood that at the time it comes back to this board, we would have a public hearing, which means we would have speakers at that point in time to say, how you felt about what we were doing.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the board for the correspondence we've heard from you for at least the last year and a half. I'm not sure how long it's been. They've always been very professional and very well done, and understanding that it takes a while to get things done in government, which is one thing that bothers me a lot, but I've learned that that's the way it works. So it's not private enterprise, but we have to hear from everyone on anything we do. But again, I'd like to thank you. Any other comment from board members? Yeah. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bill, the only question I'd have is under your offenses, who would be responsible for those?
But under which section?
Enforcement of the fines, where would that enforcement fall under, or do we know that quite yet?
It would be under our animal control section as part of the health department. And as you can see, there's a warning there first that we think is necessary. We would not be talking about grandfathering in existing large tethering activities that take place. It would not, though, involve hunters. This does not restrict hunters, and I think we say would not, the activity engaged in organized and lawful animal activities, hunting, camping, law enforcement folks, tethering animals, it would not involve them. But animal control, and we looked at that to see what impact it would have on staff. And we feel like we can accommodate this with this level at this point in time. When it got to trying to gauge 3 hours in a 24-hour period of time, then that may take more deliberate effort and watching and going back and seeing how much actual time. It also may prevent the person going to work during the day from simply leaving the dog tethered for a period of time. But we're just looking to try to regulate a little more responsibility with this kind of activity.
Was it the thought of your board that these fines would be per animal or per incident?
It was per animal.
Per animal.
It was specified, as a matter of fact, I believe in the April 2019, I believe that Mr. Stocks specified that he'd like to see this fine apply to every animal over 5.
Okay.
So if it's 6, 7, or 8, you multiply.
And I'm sure it says it here, but haven't just gotten it. I really hadn't studied what you got here. But I agree with it. It should be on a per animal basis.
Yeah, and I don't believe it does say that, this particular one, but the board did, in a motion, recommend that a fine go with each additional animal beyond 5. And 5, you would think, would be fairly extreme and fairly large, and, 5 dogs tethered in a yard, you don't see that very often, quite frankly.
Is it, when it comes to us, would it be an opportunity for this board to express like the 3 versus the 5 or whatever, some input from this board as well?
Your total authority, that is totally within your,
Well, we're not looking total authority. We want to be working partners, but
Yes.
5 seems to be, particularly if my wife goes through my briefcase and sees 5, I'm gonna have to ask for a smaller number, I'm sure. Probably suits her board to be a minus number, but that's another point in life. But I'm gonna quit talking and study what you give us here so far.
okay.
Other comments?
I think if there are comments, feel free to pass them on to me or to Mr. Hill, and before we run our public notice, we can make some changes if necessary.
Does your consolidated board have additional work to do to this before it moves forward, or is this what they have come to?
Their work is concluded. We have gone before them 3 times, once on the general statute that was changed, because really did want some approval moving with the state law back in 2017, in other words, and not be in conflict with the state law. But the board has looked at it at least 2 separate occasions, and I feel comfortable the board has had ample input, including a veterinarian, Dr. Meacham Tucker, who's on that board. Right. And Mr. Cole.
I don't remember how did we come up with 5? Somebody suggested it. I mean,
I'm not sure about the reasoning behind it. I remember proposing 3 as the county attorney.
I think it was just a matter of we trying not to be too,
well,
being we're in a rural
I think so.
place. And I didn't know it was still normal that we tether dogs, but evidently it's going on in places, or some people do. But it seemed like to me 5's a yard full of dogs, on a chain.
It does. And
it was brought up that we go to 5, I think, just trying not to be too hard.
I think it was viewed as an evolutionary step to, hey, let's at least start with some number that's better than having 18 or 16.
Right.
And possibly a move to 3 or to 0 might be in the future if this board would deem that necessary.
Still, I remember Johnny County also dealing with, and I'm not sure how it ended up, but they're trying to move their particular tethering law into the part where you're actually transporting dogs in the back of a vehicle, and they were trying to eliminate where you could actually tie them in the vehicle. Is that involved in this, or that has it come up?
Actually tethering a dog in a vehicle?
In the back of a truck, open truck.
That was not discussed in this particular. That has not been. That might be good input for discussion. It's been discussed a lot in one of our adjoining counties, I know just by reading a particular paper from the county north of us here. I'm not sure how it ended up. Mr. Lamb?
I know Rocky Mount has their own ordinances. Do we have jurisdiction in the towns, in the small towns? Have they adopted our?
We do have jurisdiction in all the small towns, and what they do is adopt our ordinance by reference.
Okay, and who has the power of arrest?
I'm assuming our officers.
Your animal control
officers would.
Can issue a citation.
Issue a citation.
Okay.
And that has been going on for some time. And I believe in the good warning factor. Give somebody a good chance, a warning, and ample time to correct the problem before you slap a fine. But as you can see, these fines are escalating. It starts off at 100 to 250, 500. We finally might get the attention at $500.
That's all, thank you.
500 times 15 gets a lot of attention.
Gets a lot of attention. And it's one of those things that we think that needs some revision, some restrictions there. But I have also looked at initially what this cost will be if you can't, if you want to keep 6 dogs and 7 dogs, you're going to have to build a fence or pen, and it could be considerable cost. It could be $1,200 for a pen. It could be this. But I guess that also goes with pet ownership. It costs something and some responsibility with pet ownership.
That's all.
All right.
I think there was some discussion about tethered dogs in the back of a truck. Some, across the table, maybe not formally, but that could be a training thing, that you got to get them to stay there so you can not tether them when they get trained to ride.
You might just want to talk to Halifax and see where they are with that, because I know it's been in the paper up there some fairly recently.
Halifax County?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir. Okay.
Anything else, board members? Thank you for your continued work on this, and we'll look forward to coming back to the board with it for a public hearing and adoption of what y'all decide to settle on.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Belfield.
do we need to approve them moving forward?
I don't think that was a request. My notes say no action today. I think it's just kind of an update for us. Is that the way you see it, Mr. Hill?
I think I feel a general consensus that we're to move forward with this.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Culpepers for being here again also. We now move to item number 8, which is a request from our planning director, Adam Tyson, for the workshop that we've been talking about. Mr. Tyson, turn it over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. As this board is aware, you instructed the planning staff to update the Nash County Land Development Plan that we previously adopted in 2006. As we've discussed, that's going to involve preparing a request for proposals to solicit a qualified and experienced land use planning consultant that will develop and recommend that plan update. But what I would like to suggest is prior to preparing that document, in order to give that document some structure and some shape, if we could hold a joint meeting between this board and the Nash County Planning Board and include key county staff members and members of the public that may be interested as well. And the purpose of that workshop would be to discuss and identify land use issues and items that you would like to point the consultant toward in preparing that land use update. So it is not to formulate the land use plan. That's a process that's going to take a while, but it's to basically generate a bullet list of items of concern or areas of study that we would like to include in that RFP to give it some shape and some direction to our consultant. To facilitate that discussion, I've been in talks with Mr. Bruce Naglin. He's a planner with the North Carolina Department of Commerce's NC Main Street and Rural Planning Center. He's assigned to our particular North Central Prosperity Zone that Nash County is located in. He's been doing some work with our local communities, most recently with the town of Nashville. And he has the skills to facilitate that discussion. Also, he's uniquely positioned because he understands that while we want to improve our quality of life and our prosperity, we also want to maintain our rural character, and he understands those comparing and contrasting forces. So what I wanted to ask you today is, would you be willing to proceed with that joint meeting with the planning board? And then if we could choose a specific date. We have one that was appeared workable with Mr. Naglin, and if that does not work for the board, certainly we can go back and get some other options to work with you.
So you going to reveal that date, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Tuesday, January 28th, and it would be from 6 p.m. to no later than 8:30 p.m.
I think I was recently, Susan helped me, that's the gentleman we were in a study group with recently. Okay. And he has some expertise in what we're actually trying to do as well, because that was
Yes.
concentrated along downtown and Main Street stuff.
Right. They're the NC Main Street and Rural Planning Center, and so.
Very good facilitator. I just want to make sure he was the right person for it.
Right.
Probably like most of us, we hadn't started a calendar for January too much, but I'm sure, well, let me look right quick.
What was the date again? The 20?
January 28th, 6 o'clock p.m. Tuesday.
Tuesday.
It's the last Tuesday in January.
On page 26. It's on page 26, right at the bottom.
I was looking at it wrong, but it's fine with me. Other board members, think you okay?
I'm not available.
You're not available?
I'm not available.
Think you would need to be involved, you would like to be involved, I'm sure?
Be involved.
Okay. Could we possibly seek another date?
We certainly can, as long as the board would approve me moving in that direction.
Well, I'm sure, without objection, coming up right quick, that we're certainly in favor of moving forward.
I'll reach out to Mr. Naglin and get some other possible
Yeah,
dates.
get us a couple of dates from him that he could do it.
Okay.
If you would. And of course, I know you got to coordinate it with your planning board as well.
Sure.
No, I think it sounds good. I believe our board is ready to get started with it. I appreciate it. Anything else, Adam?
That's all I have today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item number 9, which is one board appointment, and I'd like to just say we had this board appointment on our last agenda, and because we had just got some of the information that morning, I chose to table it, and then I have thought about it quite a bit, and it's unusual that we have multiple applicants for a board seat, but it's also encouraging and a good thing, I think. I felt like the best way to work through this was to just do it as a full board, and of course, because it does not fall under the preview of being a closed meeting item, we need to do it right here, of course, but facts are we have a opening on the library board because of a resignation from a person that was no longer able to serve. We currently have 4 other people that serve on the library board. One of them is from District 6, which is Commissioner Wells. We have one from District 3, which is Commissioner Combs. We have another one from Commissioner 6, which is Commissioner Wells. And then we have one from Commissioner 2, which is Commissioner Bellfield's district. As we know, most boards, we attempt to distribute them throughout the county, but fortunately, at this particular case, we have 3 people that have expressed an interest in this job. One of them is from District 4, which is Commissioner Leggett's district, Ms. Overton. One from Commissioner 1, which is Ms. Richardson's district, which is Mr. Ripley. And then one from Commissioner Bellfield's district, District 2, that Mr. Bellfield brought forward, which is Mrs. Battle. And with that said, I'm just going to open the discussion up to board members and work through this and decide to move forward with one of these. I do think it was requested, and I think it's a great idea, that we look into possibly expanding the library board because 5 members won't serve all 7 districts, as we well know. But I think that would be an item that the library board would have to be involved in, and not necessarily this board, but we can certainly ask them. I think the intent was to try to get, one thing we wanted to accomplish, if we could, was to try to get some representation from those areas of the libraries that have recently joined into the Brownsville Memorial family of libraries, which is several new ones, as we know. But that's pretty much the history on the item, and I just open it up for any commission that wishes to speak on behalf of either one of these applicants, and anything else that you wish to say about it.
I'd like to clarify one thing. I think
Mr. Combs?
Mr. Ripley lives in my district in Spring Oak.
I think we
I looked his
checked on
address
that,
up.
and
I looked the address up.
I think we verified that he is in Miss Richardson's district, I was told, but of course, I do not know, Mr. Cole.
It don't matter, but I just.
Well, it could somewhat matter.
Well, but
We're supposed to make you have 2.
Ms. Richardson's district goes down 581 south into Spring Hope, stays on 581, turns right, and goes to Burger King, turns left, and it's on the east side of 581 north, right, Ms. Richardson? But anyway, Ken Ripley, last I knew, lives in the subdivision off of 264 alternate, which is west of 581, but anyway.
I looked the Circle Drive address up, and it was
Okay.
You looked it up
It don't
in Board of Restoration?
on our GIS.
GIS, okay.
Well, I will say
Other
that
comment?
I had been contacted by Ms. Overton, and she is a young lady that is very interested to serve and involved in her community, and would be very interested in getting involved in our, on our library board.
Other comments from board members?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bellfield?
this is the second time that I've run into this situation for me as a commissioner and appoint somebody to the library board. And it's the second time that the board had agreed, you go on and get someone. When I said, it wasn't a vote, but it said, when I said I was going to get someone to appoint, to the position. And then when I get to the meeting, all of a sudden, things changed and went in a different direction. And I think we need to get to the point where we can, and that's not the only board. That happened to me with the community college board. Delayed. We're not going to take your nominee this time. We'll get you later. And I just think we need to try to do the best we can to not keep coming up with those situations. Also with the planning board, I was told that you in the city of Rocky Mount, the planning board handles outside of the city's zoning and planning and everything, and so we put you on, well, it wasn't exactly said that way, but
Well, as you, on that particular one, you know, now we do not put representation on the City of Rocky Mount Planning Board.
I know that.
We did it one time.
But I'm talking about on the overall planning board for Nash County.
Oh, for Nash County, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I misunderstood what you were saying.
So we need to try to, as much as possible, avoid this.
Well, I agree with you.
And the lady that had resigned because of health reason was the board member that I put on her term. Hasn't expired yet.
Correct. Yeah, that's an important point, that we are filling and I think I made it, but I didn't make it clear, that we are filling an expired term with this particular board appointment, and I believe she was from your district, Mr. Belfield, the lady that withdrew, had to come off, lived in your district.
Because of health, yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, she's in my district, and she was one I recommended.
Right. And I also understand, in my little bit of research on this past week, that the person that currently serves from your district, which is Linda Hardy, you did not bring to the board, but I think, Ms. Wells, if I'm not mistaken, you brought to the board.
I did, and actually the two that's appointed in my district, I did not appoint them.
You didn't bring any of those.
No.
Can y'all make it any more convoluted than what we got here?
I'm satisfied with who represents District 6. I'm just telling you, I did not appoint them.
Okay. Well, I know the history of this Board of Commissioners. We have not always worked as hard now to get full representation throughout the county as what we do now. It's, I know for the first half of my time on the board, it really never came up. We actually struggled to get people to serve on any board, but thanks to our public being more involved in county government now, as well as the Citizens Academy that we do, has brought a lot of potential board members. And really, if you look at it right, this is really a blessing and not an issue that we're dealing with today. I think it's great that we've got multiple candidates that want to serve. But that's kind of the facts of where we are, and I did table it last time. I had a request from a commissioner to table it, and I thought it was an appropriate request because we just had so much stuff that changed at the last minute. I thought it was well for us to just take a couple of weeks and study it a little bit more, and I really wanted to do it myself so I'd understand where we were today. But with all of that said, I would like to move forward today, if possible, to appoint one of these three people, and certainly I don't have any preference whatsoever. I want to do what the board desires to do.
Mr. Chairman?
So, just a question.
Sure.
This is just to finish out this unexpired term, right?
It would be to finish out this unexpired term. Yes.
Correct.
Which is, do we know how long?
I don't
It
have
doesn't really matter, but that's what it's for, yes, ma'am. I had a thought from down here.
Can I make a motion, or do we need to close the
Is
discussion?
there any more discussion? Or you can put a motion on the floor anytime, and then I'll get to a discussion level.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Ms. Elizabeth Overton for the library board position.
I have a motion to eliminate Ms. Overton. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Is it further discussion? Any further discussion on that motion? Ms. Belfield?
Chairman, I still go back to what I said earlier, that open seat was related as a health situation is one that I appointed, and I think I ought to be able to recommend to this board a person to fill out her unexpired term.
Ms. Belfield, do you not feel that you have been allowed to recommend a person? Or what is it that I'm doing wrong? If you think I'm doing anything wrong, as far as our rules of procedure.
I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong.
Okay.
But I was just saying to the board.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion?
Well,
excuse me, sir. Go ahead.
In connection with this, then I would like to offer a substitute motion.
1 second. Mr. Belfield, I can accept the substitute motion, but it couldn't be anything that would be opposite of the motion that's on the floor.
Opposite.
It's my interpretation of Robert's Rule of Order. And when I say that, I think any motion, maybe I need to hear your motion, but I think I really need to take a vote on the motion on the floor at this time, unless you want to do something that changes that actual motion, but doesn't defeat the motion. And I've got two attorneys that I sit between at all times that I would seek advice from.
Welcome your Robert's Rules of Order.
Now, I defer to the attorney.
Yeah.
I also serve on this board, so I would just,
Well, you don't get a vote anyway.
yeah, I would probably not want
I didn't think, well, if you can.
Mr. Durham, leave me.
No, I think if you want to do a substitute motion, it can't vary what Ms. Leggett is the intent of her motion.
Well, that's what I'm
Or she
thinking.
has to consent to the substitute motion, one or the other. That's my understanding. I'm not saying I'm 100% right about that. Mr.
Well, I'm just
welcome
trying to
your-
learn, I mean, but.
I don't have my rules of procedure for the
I don't
county.
have anybody in this thing, but what does a substitute motion do if it does not give you the opportunity to put your motion on the floor?
Yeah, but why?
How do you do that? How do you do that then?
Okay,
Assess that one.
you would have a motion that would alter the intent of the motion and make minor changes to it, but it wouldn't be a drastic change or make it a new motion.
I think what Mr. Bellfield's looking is how does he get his person before the board on the motion? I don't know. I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
Let me let the two attorneys talk.
I mean, I don't care.
Well, one way it could be done is she pulled back her motion and take nominations.
Why don't you pull back and let us get you an additional person on that board, we can do that. Why don't you pull back, and we'll work like heck
Well-
to get that for you. You do that.
My understanding is that the board don't
Yeah,
want
but
to
they'll listen,
increase.
they will listen to us. I know they will.
do not necessarily follow Robert's. I'm telling you what.
Just do it. Too much of an issue.
Oh,
Pull it.
oh, once we got to.
Go ahead and do it. We'll get it.
I got them too.
Go on to the next meeting, so.
And Ms. Leggett, what the attorneys have instructed me is that a substitute motion by Mr. Belfield will have to have your approval. And so if you want me to ask for her approval for a substitute motion, I can do that at this time.
Well, see,
Our county rules say that a substantive motion is out of order while another substantive motion is pending. And so in my opinion, your motion is out of order.
Well, I didn't want to use that term, but I read that
Because that
recently
is a
on the...
substantive motion because it's taken action by this board. It's different than Robert's Rules of Order, but that's what our rules of procedure say.
you say that's what the county,
What I did,
Yes,
Mr.
what you
Belfield, was
adopted.
quote you from Robert's Rule of Order. What he is looking at is a rules of procedure that this board has adopted for this board. And it would take precedent over Robert's Rule of Order.
Of course, yeah, we always could vote on hers, and if it loses, then you could make a new motion.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
That's the way it
where I'm
generally
headed
would
to.
work.
Okay. So that my Regis answer or final decision?
In my opinion, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
in second thought, if we would work on, as a board, but work on the expansion of that library board, then I'll be willing to pull back.
Well, I've still got a motion on the floor. You won't need to pull back. I'm gonna take action on this and let the board vote accordingly.
Go on and
He
take
said he
that.
was cool, but
Okay. Right, but he didn't have to. So what I got, according to Mr. Durham, is I need to take action on the motion on the floor. And then, should it pass, it passes. If it should not pass, then I'll accept additional motions from the floor.
That's correct.
So the motion is to have a motion and a second to approve this Elizabeth Overton. And what I'd like to do is just say all in favor of this motion to raise your hand. That motion carries on a 4-3 vote. All opposed, for which it's not going to change, but it carries on a 4-3 vote.
so will we move ahead to expand the board?
I'm going to ask our manager, who is a member of that board, if he would investigate having the library board to look at expanding the board to at least 7 members. Question is, do we have to approve all board members, or are the others that are approved by someone else?
The city of Rocky Mount and Edgecombe County also make appointments.
Okay.
And the 3 managers serve voting ex officio members. So
It's already a fairly large board.
well, I can certainly take it to the board and request. It would require consent of all 3 boards,
Correct.
because
Is that what we
it'd be a
want to do, is
bylaw
ask him
change.
to expand it to Nash County appointees to 7? That suit everybody?
Yeah.
7, including the ex officios or not?
No, 7 that are approved by this board,
Okay.
as I understand it. Now, is that, Mr. Outlaw, you look,
Well, listen, I've got a person sitting on the library board that's not in my district. I've recommended that person for the library board.
correct?
Ricky Pitt. So Ms. Wells did not make that recommendation. Now, this board approved that recommendation, and I'm thankful for that. I think Ricky's been a good member of that board. But I think, and again, I voted for Ms. Overton, but I think what Mr. Belfield was saying was that we had asked him to identify a person, and he did, and then we approved another person. And the reason I voted for Ms. Overton is simply because she's from that part of the county. And I just feel like we need a broader representation on the library board. But I don't know that we got to have 7, but Mr. Belfield did ask us to pursue an expansion. And in that regard, I would support that, whether it's 6 or 7.
Right.
I think, we should do that.
Well, the only thing I see wrong with that is with 2 other people appointing them, more than likely, if we get additional appointees, I would think they would want additional appointees, and we may be growing a board larger than it really should be to be functional,
Maybe some reason then to ask for 1 more instead of 2 more.
possibly.
I mean, we've got a consolidated health board that's got,
Too many members.
well, I'm not hearing anybody complaining about it, so.
I
Well,
understand.
that's a statutory number.
Our coastal
But my
plain,
point is, whether it's statutory or not, it's a large board, and they seem to be functioning fairly well.
and our coastal plain council government got 54 members
You can believe that.
on the board.
How does that work,
And we
Mr.
have,
Murphy?
well, we've been working fine.
54.
And I think,
It depends on how whoever the leadership plus the administration, operate. And our board's working fine. That board is working fine.
I think the proper thing to do, if nobody objects to it, is I'm going to ask Mr. Lamb to investigate moving it from 5 to 7, and then have this board in the future move towards having a representative from each district. Is anybody opposed to doing that? And just see what kind of response he gets. Is that okay, Mr. Outlaw?
yeah, I do think what Mr. Belfield was trying to do when he said, "I'll pull it,"
Yeah.
I think he was trying to say, I'm going to back away from this, and I'm going to allow to happen what happens, and all I'm
Right.
asking you to do is to pursue
Sure.
an expansion of the board.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, this will accomplish that.
yeah. I don't want to run into a situation like this anymore, because this is the 3rd time this has happened to me.
We meet every other month, and we meet in December, so I will bring it to the attention of the library board.
And Mr. Chairman, I think we need to look at too, is trying to expand and pull in representatives from different parts of the county,
Right.
section-wise.
Right.
That's one thing to look at. But-
Well, if we had 7, we could work towards having each district represented.
But, and it's good too to have more than what we need. That's very seldom our
I agree with you.
problem, but
I
I'm
think it's
hoping that at some point, when we are overrun or have more than we need for applications for a position, that they would accept a position elsewhere. We have other
We do.
openings that we need to fill.
Absolutely.
So if you can't fill one, please fill another, because it only lasts, what, a year, 2 years, and then they rotate on off. So
Right.
it's always plenty of work to do, so if you can't get it on one, please accept something else, because the county, we all one, not just one section.
Miss Stacy could just let us know when these that are on here term expires, then we can kind of look. Some of them may be going off this year.
Just
May
give us an
open.
update if where those board members are. Okay, thank you, board members, for allowing us to work through
Well,
that.
don't we have all that information listed in our iPad? I mean, all
Yeah.
you gotta do is go to it and look at it. Yeah, it's there. I mean, you can look ahead and see what's coming up.
Well, we're not sure when all of us are going to have an iPad, Mr. Outlaw.
Oh, okay.
so we may need to-
Well, call me, I've got one.
That's okay.
We're just gonna work.
Unless we have an update on that, I'll ask for that in a minute.
This is something we talked about well over a year ago, and that's why we added it in there.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
But be careful what you ask for, because sometimes when you're saying that you're gonna have equal representation across all 7 districts, sometimes it's very hard to find someone in your district that's willing to fill those seats.
Yeah, it is. And I could well have brought one of those myself. I honestly don't recall. But the other one in Miss Wells's district, if she didn't do it, I probably did it myself, which is William. Okay, good discussion. We're now on Commissioner's report. Mr. Outlaw, I'd like to turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, we will start with, let me get in here to this iPad, which nobody has but me.
We'll
We'll
get-
start with District 1, Commissioner Richardson.
Yes. On 10 and 22, we visited the Brookdale assisted living home, and everything normally is up to par there, we usually don't have a problem, but we found a problem, and we reported to management, and they said they would take care of it. And we found that, I think most of us know of Mrs. Rosa Brody, that has served so many years on different boards, and I think her last one was the hospital board, and she is a resident there. But you know what? We couldn't find her because she was in her car and gone.
Oh, really?
And they said, well, we'll look and see, try to find her. The girl said, no, ma'am, her car's gone, so, but she's there, but she's still on the move and doing well, and that's what we love to see, places that will take care of our people and keep them healthy and happy. But the one problem we had, like I said, we reported, it was a wire across the walkway, and they said it would be put on the repair list. And we also visited Breckenridge, which is always good. And what we like about Breckenridge is when you go in, they have activity room. And believe me, those people are moving. And they are doing activities, and they welcome anybody in that want to join them. And another program they have, you don't see very many people in bed there. Very few. If they're not able to do the activities, they at least have them sitting in the chairs, in the hallways. And occasionally they'll sit so long, then they'll move them in a different hallway. And I think it is to change their perspective on what they're seeing and who they're seeing. So it's just a matter of keeping them active or their minds changing in different directions. So to me, they're doing something constructive, and that's what we like to see. And that was a good report on that, and we normally have, we don't have many bad activities there, problems that we have to report, but occasionally we do. And I was blessed, we've had 3 names turn in, and I'm getting them applications for new members. We need at least 5 more. So I have these 3 applications going out. Hopefully by the first of the year, we'll be having those filled. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Any questions, Ms. Richardson? Hearing none. District 2, Commissioner Belfield.
I'll start off with need. Last Friday, they had a workshop for board members on the community service block grant, and we were given information that this is one part that the state and the federal government grant that they give quite a bit of flexibility that the community agency that's receiving those grants can adopt them based on their local situation, which, in my opinion, gives them the opportunity to look at the situation that where they are. Of course, they have to document all of that information and the way they are carrying it out and why they are using the community service block grant the way they are using it. And I thought it was a good session, and that we will be having another one in January. I believe that date is the 3rd, but don't hold me to it. But it's the 1st of January, I can say that. And that's the thing that the report that I have from the need, and I would just make a general comment that we're beginning to really get need operating like it ought to operate. We have a new finance director for need, and she seemed to be on the ball and getting the reports that what has happened in the past. They weren't getting the reports in on time, and in some instances they were not clear as they should have been. And there are certain deadlines with these federal grants that they have to make, and they weren't getting them in on time. And they they said that they couldn't, part of that reason was because their auditor had to audit and clear things, and those reports are done on a quarterly basis. Tar River Transit, we met and we passed the board approved the fiscal year community transportation program grant application. And that application is for, and it's amazing that you had to put them in so early, that's for funds for 2021. And we also approved a mobility of seniors and individuals with disability grant application. And what they're trying to do there, or what they intend to do, is have more, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of vehicles where they can actually move out in the two-county area, Nash and Edgecombe, as well as the city. They do have contracts now with some of the agencies, especially I know Social Service has a contract with them, and I believe Wright Center also has contract. But they are asking for more money, and they understand, I mean, the executive director told us that they understand there's more funds where they can expand because there's a great need for transporting people with disabilities. So that's Tar River. Let's see what else. Oh, JCPC. As you know, and you may have read and heard, that December 1, this new law for juveniles, it moves from 16 to 18. But one thing that would still remain is if they commit a capital crime like murder, they would still have to go through the trial system. So they're hoping that with this, they would have less of our juveniles going through the court system. That is, I think that covers everything that the committees that I'm on. And any questions? Any comments? I'll do my best to answer. And if you like a copy of this report here, I would be glad to share it with you. And its own community service block grant.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Hearing no questions, District 3, Commissioner Cone.
Human Services Board met on October the 17th. It was a fairly short meeting, but Tyler from Veteran Services, of course, reported in the month of September they had 206 veterans that they offered service to in our Nash County office. So they're feeling a great need, and we should be proud of what they're doing for our veterans. Amy gave a report on Medicare transformation that had started, and it was going pretty smooth. I'm not sure that it's quite going yet because it's been delayed a time or two. Man, like I say, that was October 17th. She talked about our mental health needs here in Nash County are increasing all the time, and that low-income energy assistance starts December the 1st. So if anybody you know needs energy assistance, they can apply starting December the 1st. Mr. Hill introduced Trey Wright to us, and I think he's gonna be good, and Bill's proud to have him to help him out and getting him ready for a role here in the county. They're talking about, there was some talk about replacing or expanding the animal shelter. Sometime it's overcrowded and it's not up to date, so that's just another thing we're looking for coming down the road. Trey showed us a video about flu shots and the effects of having flu shots against not having flu shots, and they did offer them to our board that day. And then there was a lot of talk, the main thing was a lot of talk about tethering of dogs that you've heard from Mr. Hill today, and I would hope we'd go ahead and do something on that issue and get that going, because it's a problem when you got 16 dogs tied in a chain in one place. Our voluntary ag board meeting was October the 14th. Mariana reported that we had 151 parcels under the traditional voluntary ag districting. We had 60 parcels under enhanced districting for a total of 213 parcels. 9,371 acres of Nash County farmland had signed up the voluntary ag district. And that day we approved 5 more parcels. We've got a problem with the signs that are put on all the county roads coming into the county, that some of them are gone. People probably got them hanging in their man cave or their shop or something. These are the ones that says growing green with, welcome to Nash County, growing green with agriculture. They're just gone. So I think Farm Bureau paid for those signs originally, and that was their deal. So they're going to be coming to us wanting funds to replace those signs. Some of them, the signs is gone. Some of them, the post and everything's gone. They just disappeared. Trillium board met on September the 24th. They talked about the transformation to whole person care. That is where they were just handling the mental needs of patients. Now for the worst, I guess that's the lack of a better word, worst need patients mentally, they'll be handling their whole medical needs, no matter what it is, and the ones that don't have that much need or have some need but can be handled by regular doctors and clinics, it'll be done through them. It's a transformation. It's not taking anything away from Trillium. They'll actually be doing just as much or more because they'll be handling that patient's entire medical care. Medicaid reform was the other big topic. Trillium saw an uptick in the call volume in the call center after DHS sent out the first enrollment packages to Medicaid beneficiaries in Nash County. We are a pilot county. There was packets sent out that they could sign up either online or come into the office, and there's been a lot of inquiries about that. But November the 1st was really the start date, and I understand from Amy that's, I don't know if it started yet, but it was delayed. So that's the report from Trillium.
Thank you, Mr. Combs. Back to that sign thing. How many of those signs have we got where it's got that information on it? Do you know?
Yes, sir, 10.
10 of them. And
Yep.
how many are missing?
6.
6.
Other four might be gone by now.
Well, I'll just say this before you just replace them. We had, just on a much lower scale, we had a sign in my district. It was a very popular street sign. And every time we put it up, it went away. So we ended up actually cementing the pole in the ground and doing some things with the sign to make it attached to the pole a little
Well,
bit better. I don't know.
some of these, you take it off the post, and some of them, they take the whole thing.
Okay.
So cementing it in the ground, and I think bolting it and welding the
Well,
bolts
that's
or
what they
something,
did, they
so they can't
cemented
get
and
it off.
bolted the sign to it, so,
but
but anyway. just mention that.
They're on incoming road, like on 43, 56, 581, both ways, those state roads with numbers.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Cone. Okay, District 4, Commissioner Leggett.
Okay, the hospital board, we met on November 7th, and they are continuing their efforts to track and improve care and deliverables to the patients. I serve on the Medical Staff Development Committee. That's a new committee there, where they are trying a more proactive approach to recruiting doctors, more than just like replacing doctors that are retiring or leaving. They're actually looking more closely at the needs of our community and our hospital system, and trying to hire those in advance so that those doctors are up to speed when the time comes. So that's one thing they're doing. As far as financials, they're trending above the budgeted figures as far as making a little bit more money, and so that's a good thing. So that's my report.
Thank you. That was a good report that they made today, too, before the board. Thank you, Ms. Leggett. Any questions for Ms. Leggett? Hearing none, District 5, the Upper Coastal Plain RPO TAC group, we have not had our meeting yet. Actually, the meeting has been rescheduled to January. There are a couple of traffic concerns that have been brought to my attention. Mr. Davis brought one of them to my attention, and there's another one that I've been looking at for some time. But I've got a meeting with DOT later this week to address those two issues, and I'll provide feedback, Mr. Davis, once I have that meeting. I would say that Ms. Richardson is very happy because the DOT on another traffic issue has dealt with that out in her area, and they've done a very good job. The Nash Community College Board of Trustees' next meeting is tonight. I was glad that Dr. Honeycutt was able to come before us today. I think he's going to prove to be an excellent president of the college, and I know we're going to have a good working relationship with him and his staff. Broadband, I've got a handout that was prepared by Ms. McGee. It talks about the completion of Phase 1, and we're in process with Phase 2 and where we go beyond that, but I'll give everyone a copy of that before you leave today. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. District 6, Commissioner Wells.
Yeah, I'm not on Turning Point Board anymore. And STEP is meeting next week, and we have not met since the last meeting.
You're not on the STEP board?
I'm on the STEP board.
Oh, okay.
Turning Point.
Oh, okay, okay,
STEP's meeting next week.
okay. We'll make that adjustment on the Turning Point board then for our next meeting.
Is there another commissioner on the board?
I don't, Fred, are you on that board, Turning Point Workforce Development Board?
Workforce, no, I'm trying to think, didn't I appoint?
Is that an were you appointed, Miss
Yeah,
Miss Wells, by?
Yeah.
Who appointed you?
Board.
This board?
yes, I made an appointment to that board, Marvin Johnson. Workforce Development, yeah, no, I'm not on that.
Now,
They do
mine
invite,
came from Turning Point. Turning Point asked
So
me.
Turning Point will be replacing you,
Because I
okay.
actually did not represent as a commissioner, I represented as a private citizen.
Okay, great. And they'll take care of that then, okay. Okay, District 7, Chairman Davis, and after Chairman Davis's report, then back over to him for the meeting.
All right, Tourism Development Authority has not had a meeting, and our next meeting would be in in January. I'm not sure whether it's before we meet in January or after, but that'll be the next meeting for Tourism Development Authority. The Rocky Mountain MPO meeting is at 4:30 today. I kind of thought I might make it, but it now appears like I may not make it, so we had a couple of action items on there as it relates to the next step and the date of the projects that are on there. But I just notified them that I probably will not get there, so I'll catch up on that and report the next time, Mr. Outlaw.
Thank you, Chairman Davis.
That brings us to the, close to the end of our agenda. I did add an item for manager report, and just under chairman report, I'd just like to ask Stacy if she would go ahead, she probably already, excuse me, go ahead and prepare the calendar for next year. That's done. Done. Say that again, please.
It'll be approved.
It's ready
Oh, okay. Are you gonna send it to us ahead of time? Let's look at, okay, that's where I was trying to get to. If you would just let us have it. And I really wanted to quiz the board to see, we're still tweaking that second meeting a little bit. I think we ended up having 5 this year. Is that about what we want to do? I think
Well, it ended up being
6.
6, but
Because
one
we
of them
had-
is your budget retreat.
Right.
And help me out, Janice, there was, I think.
Doesn't really matter. Is everyone okay with what we did this year? We didn't have them every month this year, but we skipped some months. Are we okay to leave them in the months we had them and leave the calendar alone for next year? Does that suit everybody?
Yep.
Okay, give you some heads up on how to do that then. And that's really all I had. I think Mr. Lamb, under manager report, had a couple things he wanted.
Chairman, could I just mention one other thing?
Please, yes, sir.
I don't remember if I said it or not, but this broadband information that I'm going to pass out was provided by Ms. McGee.
You did say that.
Okay, good. I want to make sure that she got credit for this information that she provided to me, because she's certainly on top of it.
Right,
Thank
yeah.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you did say that, but I appreciate that. Mr. Lamb, I'll turn it over to you, sir, for chairman, for the manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In recent weeks, the chairman, myself, and Jonathan Boone met with Mosley Architects regarding a possible jail needs assessment. It is the responsibility of county boards of commissioners to provide facilities for the courts and for other county purposes, including the jail. We negotiated with Mosley for an amount less than $20,000 to do a data-driven analysis as a jail needs assessment study. The services they will be providing are listed in the letter that I've provided each of you. Number 1, evaluate the current jail facility needs. Number 2, forecast inmate population and associated space needs through 2040. Identify long-term space needs and solutions. Develop options and diagrammatic plans for an expansion at the jail site. Estimate probable cost. Work with an advisory group, which would include the sheriff's department and the jail staff as appointed and put forth by the sheriff. Just like we did on the courthouse edition, we had a study group that looked at all the needs, and it's the same type of thing. We're going to have an advisory group. They're going to discuss this with all relevant personnel, present the findings to the county commissioners, and provide a written report documenting the study findings, options to address needs, and recommendations for next steps. As I said, this will be a data-driven analysis. This will not mean that necessarily any addition will be done by Mosley. This is simply a study of needs. We would still need to do an RFQ. We would still need to put out an RFQ for architects if the county chose to go forward, which I think we do believe that we need to make some kind of addition, given the jail situation. And so last week, we entered into this agreement, and I know everyone will be very happy that we've gotten to this point. And so we will be getting a comprehensive needs assessment by a professional architect, which, as I said before, is data-driven. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Timing.
On this item from board members?
What's the timing for completion?
I don't think we have that, but we have let them know that in the event a recommendation comes forward that requires an expansion of the current footprint with additional beds and cells, that we would like to accelerate that timetable no more than 2 years. We'd like to have it in 18 months. Meeting with the state folks last week, and they were very glad to know that we were doing this. They were talking 3 years is how long it normally takes, and I let them know that we had let Mosley know that we need their report right away because we want to speed this up.
So are you saying this could take?
No.
Now, what Mr. May said, Mr. Outlaw, was that he would get his study done in 2 to 3 months, is what I remember, but he said construction time.
Oh, I understand.
He started at 3 years before he left. We had him down to, from this point, we get the study, 2 years would probably be the best, we could, absolutely best we could get it done, so we're looking at 2 years.
So by the end of February, I would think at the latest, then we'll have some report back.
I believe so. I believe that will be ample time, 3 months.
Probably need to let the record reflect that, because we need to kind of have some time defined that we're going to be bringing this to hopefully some positive closure at some point.
Right.
Other comments from board members? If not, we move to item 11, which is a closed session, and I would request a motion to go into closed session for matters of attorney-client privilege and personnel. Personnel item would be the commissioners beginning the process for the annual manager's evaluation. And Mr. Durham, do you expect any action to be taken after the closed session?
No, sir.
And neither do I under personnel either, so entertain a motion to go into closed session at this time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Belleville.
Before you do that, I
Yes,
was
sir.
just thinking, you were saying our afternoon, the second meetings is conflicting with you serving on the board of, is that rural?
This is the first, I had only 3 lapses this time. I got the 2 of them, but I'm not gonna get there today.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, that maybe we could schedule our second meeting of the month so that it wouldn't conflict with
Right,
that.
I'm gonna, when I get her, that's the reason I asked primarily for all of us to get it, so we can compare what else we had and try to work around it. But when we get that, I'm gonna certainly do that, but I appreciate you bringing it up. And the rest of us need to do that as well, as what our obligations are. Because that date, they allowed me to back it up 30 minutes to 4:30, but the board that serves now doesn't want to change the date, nor do they want to change the time any later. So I've kind of got to work towards that 4:30 on the 3rd Monday of the month as much as I can. But we'll certainly try to do that. I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you.